Question A. Now this is a sine curve because it starts at 0, goes up to its maximum. And the fact that that maximum is 6 means that we have 6 sine. We also have an x. You can see from the diagram that the period is 120 degrees. How many cycles would there be in 360 degrees? There would be 3 cycles. So the graph then is y equals 6 sine 3x. Part B is a cosine graph because it starts at its maximum value and goes down. Now, maximum value is 7.5. So it's 7.5 cos something x. Now, this is unusual. It takes 720 degrees to complete one single cycle of this graph. So what we have to ask ourselves is, how many cycles would we have in 360 degrees? We would have 1/2 of a cycle. So it's 7.5 cos 1/2 x, and that might be written as 7.5 cos of x over 2. Part C is a sine graph as well. You can see that the graph starts at 0 and goes up to its maximum. Now, what is the maximum? The maximum is 2, so it's 2 sine. Now, there's a problem with this one. If you look at diagram A again, the sine graph should start at 0 degrees, but this one starts at minus 40 degrees. It means the graph has been shifted to the left by 40 degrees. Now, how do we express that then? A graph has been shifted to the left by 40 degrees. Well, it means that we have the equation y equals 2 sine bracket x plus 40 degrees. So, part A, cos x equals 0.5 degree, 0.5. First thing to do is to draw a cast diagram. Now it's a cosine function and it's positive, so we take the quadrants A and C. We can then go straight to the calculator, so it's x equals cos to the minus 1 of 0.5, and the answer is 60 degrees. Now that's the answer in the first quadrant. To get the second answer, the answer in the fourth quadrant, it's 360 minus 60, which is 300 degrees. Part B, so sine x equals 0.707. Cast diagram. Sine is positive, and sine is positive in the first two quadrants. So calculator, x equals sine to the minus 1 of 0.707, and we'll get the answer 45 degrees. That's the answer in the first quadrant. The answer that lies in the second quadrant is found by subtracting that 45 from 180 degrees. That gives us 135 degrees. Part C. Tan of x is 1.192. The tan function here is positive. So in our cast diagram, we'll tick the first and the third quadrants. And x is tan to the minus 1 of 1.192, and that equals 50 degrees. And the second answer is found by adding that first answer to 180 degrees. So we get 230 degrees. Part D, cos of x is negative 0.866. So cast diagram. Now cos is positive in A and C, so it's negative in S and T. What I'm going to do is to work out x. I'm going to take the negative away from the value. We shouldn't put a negative value into the calculator. The negative tells us which quadrants we're going to tick, but we can put the positive value into the calculator. So shift cos of 0.866, and that gives us 30 degrees. And it's this 30 that we're going to use in the cast diagram. So the first answer we get is 180 degrees minus 30, which is 150 degrees. And the second answer that we get is 180 degrees plus 30 degrees. And that gives us 210 degrees. Now part E is interesting because we're going to have to do a bit of work with this one. So I'm going to subtract 5, and that's 8 sine x equals minus 5, and then divide by 8. So sine x equals minus 5 over 8. Cast a diagram. Sine is negative. Sine is positive in A and S, so it's negative in T and C. As I did with the last calculation, I'm going to put the positive value into the calculator. So x is sine to the minus 1 of 5 over 8, and that gives us the value 38.7 degrees. So to the cast diagram, it's x equals 180 plus 38.7 degrees. So that's 218.7 degrees, and x also equals 360 degrees minus 38.7 degrees, which is 321.3 degrees. So what I'm going to do here is subtract 25 from both sides. That gives me 15. Tan of x is minus 25, and then divide by 15. Minus 25 over 15, and we can simplify that to minus 5 over 3. Cast diagram at this point. So tan is negative. Well, tan is positive in A and T, so it's negative in S and C. As with the last two calculations, I'm going to forget for a moment about the negative. And that gives us the value 59 degrees. So the cast diagram then, it's x equals 180 degrees minus 59 degrees, which is 121 degrees, and x equals 360 degrees minus 59 degrees, and that's 301 degrees. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides here, and that gives me 4 sine squared x equals 1. I'll divide by 4, and sine squared x is 1/4. Now, how do I get rid of the square? I square root. So sine x equals, now remember, when you square root a number such as 16, you should really get the positive and negative, and that's essential for this solution. And plus and minus 1/2. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to say that sine of x equals 1/2, and then that sine of x equals negative 1/2. I'm going to deal with them separately, having two trig equations in one. So the cast diagram then, sine is positive, If so, x equals sine to the minus 1 of 1/2, and we get 30 degrees. And the second value is found by subtracting that from 180 degrees. So that gives us 150. There are the two solutions to the positive equation. Now I'm going to draw another cast diagram. Sine here is negative, so we'll tick T and C. We already know that x is 30 degrees, so we can use that here. The third answer, which is to say the first answer for this equation, but the third answer overall is 180 plus this 30, that's 210 degrees, and x is 360 minus 30, which is 330 degrees. So there are four solutions then. Divide by 9, and cos squared x is 6/9, and take the square root, and cos of x equals plus and minus, don't forget that part, the square root of 6/9. So I can write that as cos of x equals plus root 6/9, and cos of x equals minus root 6/9. Cast diagram here, we'll do the positive one first, that's the easier of the two. Cos is positive, so we'll take A and C. X equals shift cos root 6/9, and that gives us 35.3. And the second value is found by subtracting from 360 degrees, and that gives us 324.7. Cast diagram here will have ticks in the other two quadrants because cos is negative, so cos is positive in A and C and negative in S and T. As for the last one, we already know the value of x, we've calculated it here. So it's 180 minus 35.3 degrees. That gives us 144.7 degrees. And x equals 180 plus. And that gives us 215.3 degrees. And there are four solutions.